What's going on, YouTube? I'm Brendan.
I'm Cody.
This is Real Pulse Reviews, and today we're reviewing The Gorge starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller. For me, I thought The Gorge was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I really liked, for me, the best thing about The Gorge was the visuals. The visuals throughout The Gorge, the entire thing, I'm talking FX, just wide visuals of like the mountain, the trees, like everything looked phenomenal. The Hollow Men looked phenomenal. The centipede in the tree was incredible, and the skull spiders were just amazing. But even like when you got into the silo, and I don't even know what to call it, like the radioactive orange mush people, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know what to call them, but they just looked beautiful throughout the movie. I thought the acting was also phenomenal. It was cool to see Sigourney Weaver in there. I thought the chemistry between Anya and Miles was really good as well. Story-wise, I liked that it didn't feel long. It wasn't an overly long movie anyways, but sometimes movies can really drag on and feel too long, and this one almost felt a little short to me. I felt like I could have had more. But I loved it. Thought it was phenomenal. There are a few scenes that I didn't really enjoy as much, and I'd say, for me in particular, well, I guess it wasn't not enjoying it, but it was just like, for example, when they got into the lab and there was a computer from the late 2010s, they made a point to talk about that, but if you're a billion-dollar company and you have all these drones, what's the point of sending a computer and a team down there? It just didn't really make sense to me. I thought that was probably the only thing I was kind of like, that's a little pointless and weird. Maybe late 2010s they didn't have the drones that they had flying around in there, but that was pretty much the only scene I didn't like. I didn't like him flying over the gorge. It just felt like the moment they landed, I said, yeah, these two, after what, 80, 90 years of people successfully watching the gorge and not messing anything up, here come these two, and they're gonna, of course, mess it up for plot, but I mean, that has to happen or there's not gonna be a movie. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun watch. If you go into it, I think trying to take it too seriously, you might not enjoy it, but me personally, I love stuff like that, like the Hollow Men, where they looked so good. All of them had like unique designs. It didn't feel like any of them had stale designs. Everyone felt different, and it was cool to see the callback with his name was what, Bradford Shaw. The callback with him being the one in the silo that they killed. So it's a cool little callback in there. Thoroughly enjoyed the movie.
So I personally enjoyed The Gorge. I was very hesitant going into it at first because I like movies that focus solely on, well, not solely, but more on character development and the characters. And then with this movie, I thought first thing, oh, it's just another action movie. They're going to focus solely on, action and like the gorge, what's down in the gorge. And I feel like they did a good job in the beginning of the movie at taking these two characters, Straza and Levi, and letting them slowly start to talk. Well, communicate, not talk yet, but communicate by writing stuff down. And then ease into it. And then finally, Levi sees that Straza is upset and he comes over. And then you're like, finally, yes, we get to see them talk. And it's building you up to that point, which I thought it did a really good job at that. And then you have so much more story to tell. One thing I truly appreciated is how they took Whiplash and then they took The Queen's Gambit and meshed it together, like two of the most critically acclaimed, well, questionably, but I would say most critically acclaimed for each of them. The Queen's Gambit for Anya Taylor-Joy, and then Whiplash for Miles Teller. And they were playing drums, they were playing chess. I thought that was a really cool reference. One thing, I don't really see a lot of people talking about that, which I thought like right away, I was like, that's amazing. One thing I really liked was Sigourney Weaver, how her name was Bartholomew. I thought that was fantastic. I really thought she did a very good job. I mean, first off, she's an alien killing badass, right? So you can't really mess up with having her in this movie. And I thought she did a really good job Miles Teller always does a great job, in my opinion. And then Anya Taylor-Joy, I think, stole the movie. Her performance, in my opinion, stole the movie. One other thing that I just want to talk about is with Dark Lake, too. In the beginning, you knew they were behind all of this, right? You knew they were covering something up. And, like, in the beginning, I was like, okay, this is one of those movies where it's going to be very predictable. And it kind of was, but it gave you what you wanted, right? Like most movies do, they give you what you want. So I appreciated that. And overall, I thought it was a very solid movie. It kept my attention till the end. Like I said, with action, there's a lot of action going on. And it's like, okay, let's focus more so on the plot too, like actually get back to the story. Overall, though, I thought they did a good job at everything else, like with Levi and Draza, like that is the story right there. And I thought the chemistry was pretty darn good. I thought they made it very believable. And overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, very well said. I just want to touch on a few things. Like you said, with the story, it's going to be more action-packed. So if you're coming into this looking for a story-driven movie and something you're going to sit down and maybe get a lot of lore from or get a lot of story out of, you're really not coming into a movie like that. You're going to get a movie that brings you in, gives you action, and lets you out. It has story, and I think the story's fine for what the movie is, but as far as like story-driven movies, this definitely is not going to be something for anyone looking for a story-driven movie. But just as far as action goes, it's very gripping. It gets you, and once you're in, you're really in there. Overall, it's the story's okay. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but I think that's how most action movies should be. If you're an action movie, focus on the action, get in, give the audience a good time, give them some story, and get out. I think that's the best way you can do an action movie.
I mean, that's fair, right? Action movies, people like explosions, especially Michael Bay. But I just feel like just because you're an action movie, don't shy away from a good story, a good plot to like towards the end, I feel like, to go back to your point, they could have done more. Like, I truly feel like they could have done more, like you said, whenever they found the computer and they were like late 2000s. It gives you more, like, it gives you some stuff to think about, but it doesn't fully dive into it. And I feel like they could have made better use with that time, right?
Yeah, I feel like it leaves a lot to be desired, especially with the computer and the going back to the silo scene with the, I don't even know what to call them. I don't know about the people in the silo, the orange mutated people. Yeah. What's going on with that? Why is it there? Were they the original lab team? Like, what's going on there? All we get is them setting it on fire, and that's it. There's nothing really there. There's a lot to be desired with certain aspects of the movie.
I mean, there's like, they were going back to like the Cold War, right? Like, you had people that were in the war.
I think it was late 40s. I thought they said after World War II.
Yeah. So I also want to touch on like leading to the ending. I feel like going into the ending, everything was rushed. Like, it could have done better at building it up. Like, all of a sudden, Sigourney Weaver, Bart, we'll just call her Bart. Bart is like, talks to Levi and is trying to figure out, hey, like, what's going on, right? Like, what's going on? Were you helping the other side? And then there's a snapshot of both of them, and Levi is just like, no. Then instantly she's like, Levi is compromised. Let's take him out, just like they did with the other guy. What's his name?
I don't remember.
Bradshaw?
I don't remember what his name was.
But the guy in the beginning that was going over everything with Levi, they just took him out, and you're like, okay, this isn't going to be good for Levi, right? I feel like they could have done more with that. I truly do. And I feel like it was just rushed in. Like, all of a sudden, they come, Dark Lake comes, and then you have Miles Teller and Draza, and it's just rushed. Like, boom, they snipe, they take out like the detonators or whatever it was. The cloakers, and then it goes off, a big explosion, and then end of story for Dark Lake doesn't really. So that what also makes me think, are they having a second one? Because they don't give you all the answers. If they're giving you a second one, I totally understand why it wasn't everything up front. So how do you feel about the ending?
I enjoyed the ending. For me, though, I don't think they could do a second one. I mean, they dropped an atomic bomb on that place. I don't think there's any. Okay. There's not really going to be anything left. And going back to it, they dropped an atomic bomb. So how did anyone get out of there?
Also, too, weren't you thinking, why were they not infected?
Yeah, they were down there for hours.
Like, how? Like, that's one thing where I'm like, okay, I get it, the story. Like, because then they make you think, is Levi infected? And then Levi comes right at the end.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, I was hurt. Well, clearly, you were hurt. Were you infected? Did you figure something out? Mm-hmm. Did you... Because I saw they had antidote, too. Did you, like, see where they had, like... I think it was antidote, right? Down in
It could have been. I don't know.
I think so, because they were watching that footage. Yeah. And she was, like... When she showed us her stomach, whoever it was, like... I was like, oh, that's gross, but I kind of want to see it when, like, Levi or Tross. Like, yeah. I wanted to see something and then them figure out a way to kind of fix it.
There's a lot to be desired because you're in the lab and you're exposed. They were in the silo where it was leaking out, and you're telling me they're somehow not infected by that. That doesn't, to me, that doesn't make any sense.
I agree, man.
The ending was definitely, like you said, I could see where you come from saying it was rushed.
Yeah.
To me, if you were going to not show Miles Teller coming out of the water, just don't bring him back at the end. Like, if you want to bring him back, just show him coming out of the water like he's alive. Why do that dramatic scene where he got knocked in the water? Is he going to die? Don't show him coming out, and then next thing you know, he's just at the end all this time later. So,
lastly, too, is it just me, or did the Holoman remind you of condemned Groots?
They do.
That's the first thing I thought.
I didn't think of it, but they do look a little bit like Groots, and it is kind of funny.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Like, I was like, that's the first thing I thought, and I just thought, like, the animation, like, everything was done really well in that.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Like, I thought it was great.
Yeah, the FX in this movie were absolutely stunning. For me personally, have you seen Annihilation?
No.
With Natalie Portman, I think. They in Annihilation, I'm not going to spoil it because it's an okay movie up until, for me, I'm not going to talk a lot, but Annihilation is a good movie until the end. But they explore a similar thing in human DNA and nature DNA splicing, but it's a different aspect at the end. I liked it all the way to the end. It lost the plot, but this, for me, the way it was biowarfare testing really made sense, especially around that time because, America, we dropped the atomic bomb, and all these other countries during that time were absolutely trying to do build their own bioweapons or maybe not bioweapons, but like their own weapons of mass destruction. So it was cool to see, like, okay, this was based on around that time. It went wrong, and this is how it's been. And now this company's here trying to take it and create the ultimate soldier. So really cool twist on that. I think that DNA splicing was a really cool aspect to the whole movie. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that.
I agree, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
So now we would like to give our final verdict for the film. We're going to rate it 1 out of 10 using decimal points.
Yes.
So, Bren, what did you think?
For me, I go into movies a bit more casually. I like to just sit down, and I don't like my movies to be drawn out, and I think this really hit the mark. It was short, it was sweet, it had its fair share of problems, but for me as a casual viewer, I really, really enjoyed it, and I think if you're a casual viewer, you will as well. My final rating, 7.8 out of 10.
I thought the movie overall was I thought it was well done with the character side. The acting was superb. Like, I really thought the acting was good. It's just a common, I feel like, storyline. But you can do a lot with it. I feel like they could have done more, like gave you more answers. But with that being said, it kept my attention for most of the movie. There's some, dry spots here and there. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. And what brings me to movies is that character connection, like I said. between Miles Teller's character and Anya Taylor-Joy. That really brought me into this movie and made me adore this movie. And this is something that I will gladly, cleaning around the house, I'll turn it on, because I enjoy it and it's easy to follow. So my rating is actually a 7.9.
It was solid, but that's it. We'll catch y'all in the next one.
Thanks for watching.